have Team Imani in the room.
Team Imani there.
Okay, that's great. OG, let me know when your partner arrives, please. OG, are you complete? Okay, I'm waiting for OJ to confirm that they're complete. Yes, I am speaking because I'm waiting for OG to confirm that they're complete. That's responding the chat. Okay, does that mean that OG is now complete from the chat? Can I please get an audible confirmation for that?
Yeah, audible.
Okay, thank you. I assume that OG is then complete. I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Your sound is breaking, but your sound is breaking a bit. Could you try again?
Can you hear what I'm saying? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sure, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, but your sound is breaking quite a bit. Is there anything you can do about it to get like better connection or better microphone? Okay, while the speaker sorts that out, I assume that all of the other teams are here. I congratulate all the teams that managed to get to the finals for getting so far in the tournament. I'm Anna, I'll be your chair for the round, and I'm very pleased to judge you all. I will let all of my panelists introduce themselves. We have six amazing judges judging with me. I would like them to go in the order as you're written in Tabicat to avoid confusion. Thank you. No, you're breaking a lot.
Am I audible now?
This is better. This is better now, yes.
Hear me.
Okay, it's still breaking. Every other sentence you're breaking.
Can you hear me? Am I audible? Okay.
Yes, but you're breaking. This is a problem that other people are also experiencing, right?
Let me check.
Can someone else confirm that there is a problem? Okay. Thank you. I hope it's going to be okay before the speech. Can we proceed with the panelist introduction, please?
Hi everyone. I think I'm audible. My name is Abigail Johnson, and I'll be panelist for this round.
Hi everyone. I'm Chekube Chukwu Agwaronye. I'm a panelist on this panel for the finals, and I wish every team good luck. Thank you.
Hi everyone, so this slide of reference on the university.
No, Funda, can you also like introduce yourself if you're here?
Sorry, are you talking to CG?
No, like checking if every panelist is here, but I think we're missing. Oh no, they're reconnecting.
Okay, cool.
Motlashti Mogorosi, sorry if I mispronounced that. Can you also introduce yourself, please? And introduce yourself, please.
Greetings, everyone. I am Namfunda Sithole.
Okay, and Abdullahi, I am not going to attempt to pronounce your surname. Could you also please introduce yourself? I think everyone else then did. I cannot hear you, but I see that you're unmuted. So we have a problem with 2 microphones. Okay, I guess we'll sort that problem out later. I cannot hear 2 of the panelists. We'll sort it out before discussion period. Okay. So I think with that, we can start the round. Few things. First, before your speech, you can introduce yourself by like stating your gender pronouns if you wish to do so, and also state your POI preferences so everyone else in the rounds knows. So I'll be putting timestamps in the chat for first, 6th, and 7th minute. At 7:15, I'll write over time. After that, the panelists should not be taking notes anymore. That's all. I wish all of the teams good luck, and yeah, best of luck in this round. I will start the recording now because I was asked to do that by the CA. And we will proceed with the round then.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. I invite the Prime Minister to open this debate on the motion this House as a vegan would attempt to join a collective of cross-species combatants. Here, here.
The recording has stopped.
I'm sorry. This is not okay. I can't hear.
From the audible.
No, you're not. You're breaking too much. Do you have any idea how you can fix your network?
Sorry, is anyone sick?
Please, panel, can you hear me now? Can you please confirm the others can hear me? So I don't know that it's just your end or something.
Okay, can someone else respond, please?
I think it's breaking.
Please, am I audible?
You're breaking.
Okay, a lot of people are saying you're breaking badly now.
Okay. Okay.
Can you connect from any other device? If that's not an option, you could maybe call through your call your partner and speak through their device. Maybe that was a suggestion by one of the panelists. I think I agree with it. Okay, we lost the Prime Minister now. I hope they're trying to reconnect from another device.
I don't know. This is taking too long. If Prime Minister cannot fix his device so quick, I think the partner might have to PM while the actual Prime Minister probably sorts out with another device to get through, because this is taking too long.
Okay, I will ask the CA team if we can do that.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, this is better. Can you read the motion so we know if we can hear you for a lot of time?
Okay. This house as vegan, right? That's what it says.
Okay.
Combatants. Am I still the one?
Yeah, that's audible for me. I think we can proceed with that. So
This meeting is being
I invite
recorded.
the Prime Minister then to open this debate. Here.
Oh, okay. 3 seconds, please. Panel, just to confirm, am I still audible on your end?
Yes, you can proceed with your speech whenever you're ready.
Okay. So beginning my speech in 3, 1. Panel, understand the nature of the type of crisis that we be as a vegan. The first thing is to frame why an individual decides that he's not going to choose eating vegetables and the rest of them. It is because this individual has decided for himself and butchering and then eating of these people's meat and the rest of them is something that is rather immoral and unjustified. And from the moment they achieve the ability to do that. Secondly, they also do that with the mindset that they are able to achieve in a very small way to the fact that they can be able to help these guys out of their predicament. Now, most times, these guys don't have any kind of impact. So the many small individuals within certain countries that do this never have any impact, right? We think that at the moment in society, when this type of opportunity exists for these individuals to do this kind of a thing, we think that the attempt to join these guys is something that is rather justified. Why is it justified on that?
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to pause the debate because one of the panelists is not hearing the round. I am sorry.
Oh, what the hell?
The panelist that texted this in the chat, can you hear me, or is the problem just with the speaker? Okay, it's the problem with the panelist's fault. I will ask them to sort this out. I apologize for the delay. We just have to get all the panelists because otherwise we lose a voting member of the panel.
The recording has stopped.
Okay, the panelist is reconnecting. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, no, I'm asking the panelists. Yes, I can hear you. Okay, I hope this won't happen again. We are going to restart because we were only a minute into the speech. So, Prime Minister, you're free to restart your speech whenever you're ready.
This meeting is being recorded.
Confirm that I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So beginning my speech again in 3, 2, 1. Panel, understand the kind of crisis of decision that exists in this debate. We think that this person, as a vegan, has to take the opportunity or has to take the chance to help people that have suddenly decided to gain sentience and go against people that have oppressed them for millennia. Understand why a vegan is justified to do this. Because at the moment where these guys are told themselves that they're able to take certain decisions from a certain point in time in their lives, they decide to get rid of meat and decide to go vegan. Most times, these things in itself don't impact the rest of the society that they live in anyway. But they take that singular moral choice the rest of their lives to abandon all sorts of carnivorousness and whatever. What this simply means is that these individuals are happy to join in this and help at that moment in time. As an individual within this debate, what then is the justification for them to do this? For deciding to abandon any kind of carnivorousness and the rest of them. They have told themselves that they are abandoning how these individuals attribute or go ahead in society. So attempting to join these guys is something that is most likely beliefs and ideologies that they have over themselves and their children and families and all that stuff. We think that they attempt. Secondly, understand this. We need to also, prove something that is particularly very important in this debate. Why do we think that the attempt to join is something that is not going to harm them? Because I think that most individuals are going to come into this debate to say that the rest of them and blah, blah, blah. I think that firstly, the attempt to join means that simply that because of the fact that they have been vegan and there's attribute or evidence that proves they are most likely going to be forced individuals at the end of the day. It means that there is no harm at the end of the day to these individuals, something that is particularly important within this debate. But thirdly, in the debate to say, we think that this is something that is particularly bad because we're not going to be going against the rest of humanity. We think that humanity, and we're very happy to join individuals to destroy the rest of them. Like it's the same thing that we have seen when we decide to break hands with against another people. But this time around, it's not just us joining humans, it is us joining animals and these individuals that have gained sentience to go against this kind of individual. We think that these things are particularly important within this debate. Why do we think that it's important in terms of self-preservation? That the moment when these guys are able to gain that level of sentence that tells them that they're able to go against the rest of society, right? It means that you're going to want to put your tent. We decide that it might win, ideologically speaking. Why do we think that is something that's particularly important within the ambit of these animals we are talking about? We're talking about animals that have the capacity to wreak a whole lot of havoc, right? If they decide to rise. So it means that humans in the world. This is not us saying that they are, going to be able to have a very easy war. These guys at the end of the day. But we think that they're most likely going to be able to do certain levels of harm. It means that in a world where the capacity to understand that these guys have the capacity to come out on top. We're most likely going to have to pitch our tent with these guys, because if we decide to stay on the other side, it's not going to help anyone. In case any side comes, we don't necessarily have to join humans. We can be neutral. You cannot afford to be neutral in this debate. Why? Because the other side and the animal side and the rest of them are the individuals that want you to take a stance. On the human side, right? If you are a vegan and you decide to be neutral about them, what this simply means is that they're still going to target you. Because the fact that you are a vegan is something that inherently of ideology around you. You're still a sympathizer. So on the side of those guys, you're going to be harmed. On the underside, your neutrality is a silence that works against you on either side of the bench, which is why you cannot be neutral in the thing that the first thing you do then is in terms of self-preservation, survive within the ambit of this debate, right? What have we been able to do? Firstly, the first thing that I've been able to is consistent with our beliefs and all that. And secondly, we've been able to show you why this is pragmatic enough to do, because of the fact that these guys are most likely going to want to win and the rest of them. Thirdly, we're able to talk to you about everything about neutrality and the rest of them. Before I continue, see what's your PI.
What is the best interest of a vegan in a world where you have no particular alternative?
I didn't get what you are saying, but you're saying you said something about what is the best interest of this guy to begin with. This is something that I've been talking about since I started speaking. I talked about the capacity that these guys have to win. If you want me to press that point, understand the kind of idea that we're talking about here, right? If there's something wrong within animals and these guys, humans and the rest of them, is a war that engulfs the planet, and you're most likely going to learn or lean to the side that knows the environment more. So your nuclear weapons and everything is not going to help, because animals are part of nature for a long time, while we humans have been running away from these things, right? So it simply means that within this debate, right, these guys are most likely winning because of the kind of idea that they have around nature, the way they are able to encapsulate themselves inside nature. So they are most likely going to lose out to individuals that have been artificial for a very, very long time. Yeah, we don't think that this world is one that exists without no alternative. That alternatives exist. You cannot say that alternatives don't exist within this debate. What have we been able to prove so far? Firstly, I told you all about the consistency of morality. I told you why you cannot take a neutral stand in this debate. I also told you why you're most likely going to be able to win on both sides on the end or the bench, because you will decide that most likely has the capacity to win the war. Because humans don't have that capacity to win the war because of the kind of idea we have around the kind of world that we take this like 10 centuries from now. Very, very proud to propose.
Thank you so much for this fine speech. Let's move across the table to leader of opposition. You can start the speech whenever you're ready.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you so much. So just keep the POIs in the chat space. I'll be watching the chat space. Don't unmute within the speech. For the sake of short diagonal engagement, I'll be willing to take one from Ebube or Furgurson. That's just about it. Prefer pronouns he, him. So chair, okay, let me set up a timer. I will start in 3, 2, 1. Chair, panel, one thing to recognize within this debate is that this is an actor motion. There isn't anybody on any upside to defend any sort of alternative that OG is trying to push on us. What we have to prove is three things. And this is something that is the bedrock of every argument that is going to be made within this debate. One, what is the incentive and the justification for the actor to take the decision? The second thing is the benefit to the actor in terms of principle and in terms of mechanics. The third thing is the consideration of the worst case scenario and whether the actor will be willing to take that decision within that particular regard. Let's talk about the first thing, and this is how we engage with opening government. Notice that the reason why there will be no incentive for the actor to take this decision is because of three structural reasons. One, you are going to forego your human privileges and the existence of rights to things like expression and all the rest of that. The reason why that will be limited within that particular regard is because you'll be forced to live with these animals, interact with them, and all those sort of chat. It means that all the benefits of civilization that you currently enjoy within status quo is something you are going to lose and is going to be limited within that particular regard. But the second thing to note here, and this is something that OG is trying to run away from, notice that animals in themselves consider all human beings, notice all human beings as inherently oppressive within that particular regard. The reason why this is so is because they think that the existence of man is a reflection of the historical harms that they have felt continuously as animals within that particular regard. It means that in the vast majority of instances that your ideology doesn't matter to them to the extent where you can't communicate your ideology to them at the end of the day. But let's imagine an utopian reality where you can convey your ideology to them as a vegan. The problem is that insecurity still exists within animals. Why? Because of the historical harms that has occurred. But secondly, notice that animals that are more likely to going to be in leadership are animals that are like wild animals within that particular regard. It means then that these animals naturally have an instinct not to trust their fellow animals, talk less of human beings within that particular regard. This shows you why there is never going to be an incentive for the actor to take this action within that particular regard. But let's talk about the next thing, the next structural reason that is very important. Notice that because that you are seen as a human that has represents people that has harmed them within that particular regard, it means that when you join, you are more likely to join as a lesser member, or you are more likely to join as a subsidiary to them. The reason why this is true is because one, you are new. Secondly, because you are humans, because you're human. But the third thing is because some animals will still have dissenting opinions or different opinions about you joining. They are more likely to give you a lesser seat within that particular regard. What this then tells you is that you would more likely have less power or less access to resources as compared to the comparative where you continuously stay with humans within that particular regard. We think it is better off for a vegan at the end of the day. Let's engage OG in terms of principle, because the extent of the argument from OG is that harm has occurred to animals and you're a vegan and you care. They don't show you any pragmatic benefit to the actor at the end of the day. The principle here is ideological purity, and this answers the second thing within this particular motion: the benefits to the actor in terms of principle and in terms of mechanics. Notice here that there is an ideological purity that exists within vegetarianism. The ideological purity is that life in all of its form is precious and ought to have dignity. It means that any sort of commodification of life is not supported at the end of the day, be it the killing of animals, be it the killing of fellow human beings within that particular regard. The same reason why a progressive like vegan would not support things like human slavery at the end of the day. It tells you that an acceptance to join these guys means that you consent to violence, a mechanism that you have always considered wrong and unsuitable for human development. What this then tell you here in terms of principle is that a support not only means that you are hypocritical, but you are also inconsistent in terms of your moral compass at the end of the day. This engages OG and most likely CG in terms of principle as to why there is never a justification for this. Notice the comparative with this principle with our closing. There are two things here. One, it means that there is a psychological deviation from your moral compass never to use violence at the end of the day as a vegan to achieve any purpose. But also, secondly, we establish the moral significance of this sort of thing for the actor and why this is there is less incentive for them to do it in terms of principle at the end of the day. Let's talk about the mechanics within this debate. And this is something that is very important. Let's assume the best case scenario where these guys do succeed, right? The problem, there are three structural reasons why it's still harmful to the actor. Notice the structural reasons from my speech. There are three structural reasons why it's going to be harmful to the actor. One, the existence of psychological connection. Notice that human beings in themselves have like a ladder of psychological connection to their fellow human beings. It means that animals in themselves, even though they are sentient within the consideration of this debate, often do not like have like the broad like range of emotions that other human beings do have at the end of the day. It means that even when these things do succeed, to the extent where your fellow human beings will be slaughtered, but also your relatives and people that have connectivity with you through social media and all the rest of that. It means then in the vast majority of instances, there is an incentive for you to discombobulate. You're more likely to opt for suicide and all the rest of that. But let's imagine that suicide doesn't happen. The problem is that unsatisfaction will then exist because you don't have your fellow human beings to communicate with. This then means that you are more likely to complain about animal leadership and the systems of government that exist there, right? Because you think that human leadership was comparatively better at the end of the day. This shows you, even if any benefit occurs on government side, you're more likely going to suffer as a human being within that particular regard. Let's talk about the next way of putting this debate. The next way of is the worst case scenario. Where these animals fail, what's going to happen to you as an actor? There are three structural reasons here. One, notice the existence of conspiracy theories that often exist within animals that are often like wide and all the rest of that. It means that they are more likely going to be a leadership that tells them that you shouldn't kill your fellow animals. It means that you're more likely going to be killed in the worst case scenario when they fail at the end of the day, because they are more likely to consider you a spy or the reason why they failed within that particular regard. But the second thing to note here is that human beings will then consider you like evil. It means that all the connectivity you have to social media is going to be lost. It means that there is a great probability for national government and even for local demographics to like seek for your head and kill you within that particular regard. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about them, the mechanics within this debate. The probability for this to happen and to have any level of success is very minimal. One, the existence of nuclear weapons and all the rest of that are human beings own and control within status quo. But secondly is that once you guys try these things and you guys fail, humans would have an incentive to take away all animals within that particular regard. Never been prouder to come from OO in the finals. Here.
Thank you so much for this fine speech. Can I get a quick confirmation from all the panelists that you're ready to continue? Maybe a thumbs up reaction or an audible confirmation, whatever is easier for you. Okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, thank you. Let's move on back to OG, DPM, here.
All right. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'll be starting my speech in. Oh, I'm coming. Let me set my time now. All right. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, it's very important for me to make a clarification in this debate. The clarification that is to be made is the world has moved, like the world is in constant progression. It has moved from animals not having rights to status quo of where we have rights for animals that are valuable to us. It's most like, and there's now advocacy for pushing for absolute rights for for animals, and they basically having the same access or the same rights that humans have within status quo. If this debate is to be argued in the year 2043, then I think we from the government side has that fiat to say, we assume by that point in time, with the level of progression that is happening right now, it most likely means that at that point in time, humans and animals should have been placed on an equal pedestal, and then they'll be on the same level. Why that is very important within this debate is to relate with opening opposition's case as to how they say, oh, you forgo your rights. I think at that point in time, there'll be nothing like forgoing your rights at the point where they have equal rights that will most likely be existing between animals and humans. So it just means you are changing from one spectrum of the society to another. It's just like you migrating from one country to another. Your right is absolute. Your right still stands because that right is equal at that point in time. But moving on, they say, oh, that
This meeting is being recorded.
You cannot say because you are scared of what these people will do to you, or you are scared of how they will react to you because they think you're oppressive, then you stay away. I think that further entrenches the particular problems you have, entrenches the particular view they will have on you. The best way for you to be able to understand their plight and to be able to show that you care as a vegan and to present a narrative of hope coming from people who were formerly their oppressors is to do things like proximity. We can liken that to things that occur in status quo as to how over time there has been shout for more inclusivity or more proximity between, for example, whites and blacks within society, so as to show that the whites are ready to reparate or ready to recognize the harms they've done to the black people. You don't do that by furtherly widening the gap between this set of people at the end of the day. But the next thing you get from them is to say, oh, there's an ideological purity and that you'll be representing violence. We think at the end of the day that my partner already showed you how there'll be a shared form of ideology between these animals and a vegan, because a vegan already has this mentality of you harming animals is as good as harming yourself or harming a fellow human being at that point in time. The clarification I made also shows why there'll be a much more ideological purity at the end of the day. If we consider that at that point in time, the right of humans will be equal to the right of animals, then we can as well assume at also that point in time that it will be as a community that is waiting to fight for their right against another community, because it goes in line with the principle of self-protectionism and the ability for you to use all means to protect yourself. This can be likened to a community wanting to build up their war arsenals because at the end of the day, their war arsenals because they want to protect themselves from oppressive structures, or they want to have a form of reparation against oppressive structures at the end of the day. We think even within humans, these are things that already occur, right? We have situations where people change alliances from one country to another simply because they mix with the ideologies of those people, not considering the harm that those things might lead to people in their own country at the end of the day. But then, the third thing you get from them is to say, oh, at the end of the day, failing means humans will come against you. I think when we consider the idea of rationality and the fact that this is an actor motion, then we think things like opportunity cost. We think things like recognizing what will be the consequences of your actions are things that a vegan will most likely take. So it means even if that person knows that will most likely can fail, then in the worst case scenario, that person prepare their mind, prepare their activities, and prepare their actions to know that they are able to cater for those type of things at the end of the day. Because I think that leads to an important clarification of how this attempt to be made in the first place. I think the way this attempt to be made in the first place will be like, before you even join this movement, you try to know more about that movement, try to recognize how they are going to carry out the activities and see how they are going to impact it at the end of the day. It most likely means that on mechanistics, it engages with OO's world, where they say, oh, at the end of the day, these people will come against you. We think joining movements are things that come at risk. Those are risks that come to joining a movement, because even in humans to humans relation, you can get killed in the crossfire of going against the government, between the police and your armed group, or between the police and your rebellious groups. We think those are things that you have to consider, and as an actor, those are the opportunity costs you consider. The rationality still stands. The biggest case on, oh, what are the benefits that this person will most likely get? I think in our own world, a vegan has more opportunity to be able to live their life in the best way they can. In government world, you most likely have a vegan who is torn between ideologies, who cannot share the ideologies of humans because they think at that point in time humans are an enemy to also them, but also can't share the ideologies of animals because they think that at that point in time they listen to the biases that comes from the opposition's world. I think in our own world, we have an opportunity for vegans to be more represented, for vegans to be more understood. You can say, oh, at the end of the day, how can the actions of one vegan impact the actions of the problems on ground? I think that most times solutions in society comes from taking little steps or from one person wanting to create change within that society. I think it would be cowardly for someone to have an opportunity to do this, but still don't do it.
I no longer hear the speaker. Can someone
at the end of the day?
Can someone confirm that the speaker cut out for a few seconds?
Am I audible
Okay,
now?
yes, you're audible, but you cut out for me at 7 minutes exactly, so I did not hear the last like 15 seconds of your speech. Could you continue from when you were talking about how it's cowardly to not take this opportunity if it was given to you?
Yes, it's cowardly to not take an opportunity or to not take a step that leads to change within society. I think at the end of the day, when we look at evolution, when we look at science, when we look at good things that we enjoy now in society, it stems from one person having an idea and being able to mechanize those ideas. We have things like when we look at the example of Adolf Hitler and how he was able to, from himself, raise masses to be able to collectively achieve a goal. I think that is something that can also occur from one person joining this COP movement to wanting to create change and wanting to self-actualize by defending their ideologies. We win from government side.
Thank you so much for this fine speech. Let's continue to the last speech of the opening half. DLO, the floor is yours. Yes, you are, but there's a lot of background noise. If there's any way for you to slightly eliminate that, it would be better. If not, I can still hear you.
Okay, am I audible now? Is it better?
This is far better, yes.
All right, so please, for POI, I've decided to be looking at the text space. Chair, kindly keep timing me so I know when my time is over. And just type POI. If I will take you, I will. And I dedicate this speech to all adjudicators out there that still make out time to speak. All right. Okay. Just me a moment. So I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, leader of opposition has been able to show you the clear psychological impact and the mechanism that exists within this debate. He has equally gone ahead to show you the ideological purity that exists and the interconnectivity that exists between humans and all of those things. From my side, I'm going to show you clarity why opening opposition wins this debate and why at the end of the day, the entire government bench, if they do not do what is principally expected of them, why they don't win this debate. The very first point of clarity that I engage in is on the argument that COG brings here to talk about reparation. Reparation isn't going to work on their head. The reason is very simple. At the end of the day, panel, you need to understand that vegans are not being affected by human beings. There should be a very justifiable reason to show why the reparation argument is going to work. Because vegans do not harm animals in themselves and they don't harm human beings. At a particular time where they are not the culpability or the culpable ones to be held responsible to this issue, that argument doesn't stand. Second clarity is to tell you one, that human beings or animals themselves are sentient. This means that they are sophisticated and they get sophisticated mechanism to defeat humans, which is very difficult. At a particular point, they do not have what it takes to even defeat humans, makes it very difficult for them to win within this world. If you do not buy this, you need to understand that the reason at the end of the day, African states started developing now because we had less war power against the West, because at the end of the day, they needed to build a lot of mechanism that was going to stand against these guys. That is what happened when it comes to animals and humans. Animals do not have that level of hegemony or control to actually fight against humans. Therefore, saying that animals are likely going to win from opening government do not make sense. But then the very fact that they don't prove to you what is the biggest incentive of vegans to do this, because they have nothing to gain. Whether you decide to kill animals or not, they fucking don't care. And even if you decide to engage in this war, at the end of the day, there are tendencies that these animals are going to fight them. Why? Because animals already has that reasoning that these guys are human. There are going to be a lot of impact that is going to affect them because they feel or they sense the same things that for the fact that you are human, you are still likely going to take the same actions that these guys are doing, which is very, very bad on their side. If they do not show these things and why at the end of the day these vegans should care, there is nothing supporting or why CG should win in this debate. Second level panel, in case you don't buy the first one, note the second clarity. Currently in the status quo panel, vegans do not actively antagonize humans for their choice. The philosophy behind this is very simple. A vegan that is advocating for non-animal alternative to doing things, it means that it is unclear how this advocacy is going to push them to support and fight humans, in as much as even in the status quo, they have less incentive to even do this. They do not engage on this, and this is why even CG comes here to come and give you all of those blah 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 arguments they bring about. They do not act directly at the end of the day. CGPOI. Okay, I move on. For any government bench to win this debate panel, they have to prove how these guys will accept you. That is the animal. Even if they accept you, it is still very worse of their. The reason is this, very simple. The fact that humans are the oppressors. Note, humans are the ones oppressing these animals. This means that there is a huge power asymmetry on their side. The war is likely going to be not going to be a just war, because there is no way you can fight a just war when humans are equally the ones that are oppressing. What happens to the world of opening government or closing government when this cock loses? It becomes very important, because there's going to be a betrayal. When you talk about the backlash and even the threats that even exist that these guys are going to do, the debate is about a balance of probability. What happens if this cock, if these animals win, and what happens if they don't win at the end of the day? These are the clarity that OG and CG need to engage in this debate. But then, secondly, panel, why will a vegan choose animals over his family and relations that has built connections with the same long time term? Why is this very important? They needed to show an incentive why a vegan wouldn't attract this in the first place. Attempting to join these animals in a war means that they have to forgo all the privileges that they have enjoyed as human beings and interconnectiveness that engages them with other human beings. When you naturally deny the fact that you're a human in a bid to support animals that you do not even have any incentive or protecting at the end of the day. The worst case scenario is that the vegans fight against humans. Would they still be able to protect animals? They can't, because at the end of the day, they don't fucking give a shit about these animals. They do not eat them, and therefore it becomes worse on their side. CG, shoot your POI for the very last time. Yeah. Your POI.
Okay, so there's no way for you to have that within these particular spaces in the world where they are accepted, that they'll be treated as less, particularly considering the fact that they'll be making a case for themselves being vegan. Like, you don't have that.
The only reason why CG already takes the foot in this debate is that the reason why this debate is existing is on opportunity cost. The reason is simple. CG has to show why and how someone will trade their love for animals for a potential hurt to their sustainability. Unless CG are able to show how vegans' love for animals exceeds that of love of Romeo and Juliet, they have lost the debate. If they can prove to us variably how the love vegans has for humans is actually going to give them that incentive to stand up to fight against humans and all of those things, CG loses the debate. But if they don't do it, it's only just on an assumption, and they feel that this is going to happen, which will never happen on their word. Moving on, panel. The only reason why vegans support animals now, according to their word, is simply because they think they are vulnerable and cannot fight for themselves. If these animals can fight for themselves now, why should that vegan still choose to fight for that? There is no analysis on this, and we expect CG to do better, because it is not just enough to assume a particular thing that is not going to happen. This debate doesn't happen in a vacuum. You have to consider the fact that, one, vegans has an incentive to protect. Secondly, what are the impact analysis and how is this thing going to happen in a world when we finally decide, or when these animals finally decide win at worst case scenario, how are the vegans going to be spared? In thirdly, panel, in status quo, vegans can fight all humans because it shows their love that they are heightened. That is to tell you there is still a level of acceptance and a level of love that exists within these vegans and humans. There is no particular incentive that can get them to actually stand up to take action that is going to alter or affect humans. But then if they do not show this, that means that at the end of the day, what they primarily assume is that this is likely going to happen in their world, and they don't show any interconnected analysis to how their side is going to be better. Lastly, panel, if there is an identity problem here, because the reason is this, panel, vegans knows that humans will never ever eat him because they are the same species. This becomes the particular identity problem here. At a particular point where vegans understand understand that human will never eat them, no matter what happens, it then shows that there will never be any particular support to why they are going to support this animal. Because it's unclear if animals will win, they will eat them, regardless of him being a vegan, because he does not know the preferences and even the moral compass of this animal. At a particular point where if animal wins at the end of the day, the vegans, they are likely going to eat these vegans. Therefore, there is no incentive for vegans to support or fight against humans who win from opening opposition.
Thank you so much for this fine speech. I am again checking in with my panelists as we're in the middle of debate. If you're all ready to continue before we move on to the last half of the debate. Can I just get a confirmation? Thank you. We have 2 or more. 3, 4. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to the bottom half of the debate. CG, member of government, whenever you're ready.
I'm audible, please.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so firstly, dedications. I'd like to dedicate this speech, first of all, to Top Voice. The fiction at debate with the talk, but we know waiting with the talk. Also to Eze Wakuba for the loss of training that he gave to me on a personal level. To UDC, my union, all of now doing this show. To the entirety of Battleground, to Dino Nimis, and all the judges and speakers out there that have been the host. Yeah. So with that said, I'll be beginning shortly. POIs in the sure, just raise your hand. Like I think there's a raise your hand feature. Yeah, so just raise your hand, but also indicate in the text space, right? But if I get to my 5th minute and I've not yet taken a POI, you can keep your timer. So if I get to my 5th minute and I'm yet to take a POI, you can just unmute yourself and say POI, right? Okay. So with that said, I'll be beginning in 3, 2, and 1. So panel, the problem with the entirety of the opening half, right, is 1, there has not yet been a proper mechanization of who a vegan is, right? But the problem with our opening in particular is that they just talk about the attempt, but they fail to show how comes there's an increased likelihood of that particular attempt being successful, right? Because you need to understand that the motion only talks about an attempt, doesn't necessarily fiat on whether or not the attempt in itself is something that's successful or not. But the next problem that is generally lacking in the entirety of opening government and also the entirety of opposition is an interrogation of 1, the outcome, the possible outcomes from this particular stuff, but also on the possible on the processes in themselves and how comes the processes in themselves play into this particular debate. So firstly, an interrogation of who vegans in themselves are. Open opposition tries to make you believe that vegans only care for animals because animals cannot defend them.
This meeting is being recorded.
Those particular animals as people that have a right to life, same way humans have a right to life. The impact of this particular level of analysis goes to show you the level of trauma that vegans feel in society, knowing that at every single point in time, billions of people worldwide are killing people that they perceive to be of the same similitude as humans in terms of them having a right to life. It's the same level of trauma panel that you feel each time you look at your news or you're watching news channels and you see people talking from genocide, right? Where you see somebody killing a mass level of people, right? It's the same level of trauma that you feel in instances where, you maybe see a friend or loved one being oppressed to a very high level by another person. What this level of analysis means is on 2 folds. On the first level, it shows you that 1, these particular people in themselves perceive humans, or vegans in themselves perceive humans as the oppressor, right? The only reason why they cannot act in any way towards humans, in and of themselves, is because of the levels of laws in themselves that particularly exist. But the second thing that this particular stuff in itself shows you is that in instances where these particular vegans in themselves now decide to make an attempt to support animals, they are not necessarily going against any of their principles. It's not more a case of trying to create some avenue of self-defense, right? But thirdly, or the third impact of this level of argumentation goes to show you that there's a level of relatability in terms of pain felt, right? It means that there's a level of relatability in terms of what is it called? In terms of pain and felt. Relatability in the sense that I can feel the pain of these particular animals. Like it's the same pain that these animals are going through that I'm going through. But secondly, it looks like the goals of both parties in themselves are aligning, right? What the impact of these particular goals are aligning, it looks like, okay, we have the same goal, because the goal of vegans by and large is that they want a more vegan world. That's a world where that oppression of animals does not exist, right? We think that, who's calling me? We think that particular, what is it called? We think that particular, we think that, am I still audible? Am I still audible?
Yes.
Okay. So we think that particular goals are aligning, and the fact that they can relate to the pain looks like you having an increased chance of success within this particular space, right? That's as it relates to the attempt in and of itself, right? But then the question then becomes on principles. One is that we think that these guys have a principle to morally preserve themselves or to self-protect themselves from the level of trauma that they feel each time that these particular humans, like, traumatize animals or feed on animals. We think on that level of principle of self-protectionism is something that is good. I've already showed you how comes it's different. Why? Because it's self-defense. They try to tell you that these particular vegans do not use violence and all of those particular stuff in those particular shots. That's a lie, right? If a vegan sees a lion coming to attack him or her, you most likely attack the lion back or try to defend. We think that that's something that is similar in this particular case. The reason why it is different in a world where they are fighting against humans is because humans are seen as the oppressors, right? What it means is that it's no longer a case of me trying to kill someone that was not doing, or trying to fight someone that was not doing anything before. It's a case of me trying to fight an oppressor, right? But beyond that, right, and this in itself is something that is very, very important. It looks like this panel, because their biggest case for open opposition is that, see, we have certain similarities that we share with humans, so we should not do this. I've already shown you how comes these guys relate more with animals than humans. But beyond that, understand how it looks like someone that is against racism, saying I don't want to fight against racism simply because of the fact that I look, or I am human, or I am like, I look the same as the same people perpetrating racism. We think that in and of itself is something that is counter-intuitive. We think it's in opposition's word that you are now more hypocritical, because you say you care for humans, you say you care for animals, but you are joining humans to fight against animals. We think that particular word in itself is very, very chaotic, particularly moving forward. But then an interrogation of the outcomes beyond the principles, right? Two possible outcomes. One is the worst case scenario where humans win, despite the fact that this particular guy is joining this particular stuff. The worst case scenario is what Aristotle tries to paint for you. But the problem with that is that worst case scenario is something that these particular vegans are feeling right now. Like in the best case scenario of a world where they don't attempt, right? That is in a world where humans win, you are more likely to still have increased cruelty to animals, right? But beyond that, increased ridicule of these particular guys. The problem with this particular world in itself is that those levels of increased level of trauma that these particular vegans face is still something that you still have existing within the purview of society. We prepare a world where they at least have a chance of solving that particular trauma, right? The world of opposition is a world of no alternatives, right? They are forever constricted to remain within those particular paradigms. She would not come up and tell you that, see, things are being done, etc., etc. But understand how those things are happening at a slow, at a very, very slow pace. There's no guarantee that it will be speeding up at any point in time, or at any point in time, particularly moving forward. But the counterfactual, or the other world, now looks like a world where they do succeed, right? In that particular world where they do succeed, we think they are more likely to get the kind of world that they want as vegans. Mind you, panelists, an actor debate, they must interrogate the debate as vegans in themselves that look at animals within those particular paradigms that I gave to you, right? We think in that particular world, they are more likely to get that particular idea of vegans, of a more vegetarian one that they are looking for. But understand this, this fight would happen whether or not vegans decide to attempt, right? In a world where they don't attempt and these particular guys win, that is the animals win, what happens is that you force them to suffer a harm that they do not perpetrate. In a world where they attempt, they are less likely to suffer these particular harms, because at least they make a case for they themselves not being partly or complicit to these particular harms in themselves, right? Panel, the way up is clear, right? In open opposition's world and the entirety of bench, what you get is a world of no alternatives where you forever constrict these guys to trauma. In our world, what you do is self-defense, where you fight against the oppressors and get level of traction for yourself. Proud OOCG.
Thank you so much for this fine speech. Let's move on to the last team of this debate, member of opposition, whenever you're ready to start.
Oh, wow. Cool. So am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you. So this is off the timer remark. I just want to give a dedication to a couple of individuals. I'm very sorry, panel, but I won't take your time with that. So I'm dedicating my speech first to my friends and colleagues at Win or Being. Thank you so much, guys. Constant training and pressure for me to always deliver and show up at training is one of the things that has allowed me to improve over the last few months. Whatever happens here, you deserve the glory. The second person I want to dedicate to happens also in an hypothetical world, and that's going to be my daughter. The name is Imani, and that is also the name of our team. So I'm doing this for you, baby. I'm definitely waiting for you to become a debater yourself. The third person I want to dedicate this speech to is my partner, Victor. It has actually been a good run with you, bro. And then the last person, but not the least, is the mother of my baby, of whom I believe everybody already knows. So let's start the debate from closing opposition. I'm going to be giving you a countdown, and then you can start my timer. I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, you've had beautiful discussion from opening and closing half. But the reason why you did not engage and enjoy the debate properly is because no team has actually been able to put you in the vehicle of where the motion in itself is necessarily happening. One, in an hypothetical world, which is 2043. And then secondly, within the reality and the characteristics of a vegan in itself. But for us to have that particular beautiful debate from closing opposition, there are 3 things.
I'm sorry, the speaker cut out for me. Can I get a confirmation that this is happening? Okay, thank you.
Why this context where this debate, and then thirdly, I will engage the argument we have from
member of opposition, you cut out like at 30 seconds of your speech. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Yeah, someone actually called me. I'm sorry, I received a call on my line. Let me just turn off my call line. Sorry, just pause my timer, please.
Yeah, no worries. You have the ability to restart. It was 30 seconds then.
Oh, beautiful, cool. So let me just turn off my call line so this person doesn't call it.
Okay, let me know when you're ready to restart.
Okay, I've actually done that now. So can I restart my speech now?
Yes, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. So I'm taking my speech from 3, 2, let's go. Listen, panel, this debate is happening in 2043, and there is a need for us to engage what that scenario looks like. It means the debate cannot happen through the lenses of closing government, because they seem to forget that this is not 2022. But then second, in a world where you necessarily have things like war outbreak, what ought to be the context at which the debate ought to engage? I'm going to be showing you 3 things under mechanics, under mechanistics, and show you why these things are important. 1, notice in 2043, there exists access to credible and reliable information about what is already happening or what is going to be happening between the 2 warring factions. It looks like what the INFOSLIDE already assumed, that these particular vegans that want to join have access to information. But notice that access to information is not just about knowing what is going to be happening, but having access to have a dialogue with the people or with the 2 factions in itself. Secondly, notice also that this particular vegan has the capacity to serve also as an intermediary between the 2 factions in itself. Thirdly, notice that there also exists the principle of mutually assured destruction between the 2 factions under 2 levels of principle justification. First, that these particular animals probably by that time, right, must have achieved some level of technological advancement or technical know-how as to how to use their present level of rationality better. But then secondly, that also humans in themselves, talking about the human race, must also like advance in technological advancement in terms of knowing how to create weapon of mass destruction that does not just destroy human, but also destroy animal in itself. It means on both sides, there exists the principle of mutually assured destruction on both sides. Context. This debate is happening in a pre-war outbreak, which means war has not started, which means there exist chances of alternative for things like dialogue and reparation and retribution to be the next engagement. This is true because those are the methods that mostly are being engaged when you want to like have war. Second, under context, in a pre-war scenario, based on the principle of aspirational values, it is intrinsically correct within human nature to always want to aspire to be a hero, which is why this particular vegans necessarily want to optimize this choice, whether to join the animal kingdom or to stick with humanity. I will show you why all these particular contexts are important in this debate. The third thing under context, notice that there also exists the way of where you get safe space. But our safe space is different from open opposition safe space. Because safe space here is one for yourself, and then secondly for your extended families, mostly individuals that you are connected with within the society. Hence, the conversation is on how does this vegan achieve, one, heroism, two, also achieve safe space for family, safe space for the animal kingdom, as well as safe space for themselves. This debate is getting sweeter from closing opposition, and definitely that's why we're going to be winning, right? Let's engage. How are we going to be engaging you? Notice that our conversation is going to be about how you are still able to achieve all of these particular three intrinsic benefits as a vegan. So let's go. What does the ideological purity of a vegan looks like? We concede from closing opposition that a vegan intrinsically, by the principle of human choice, chooses not to like collaborate with the majority of humans that believe in things like animal consumption for food, using animal skin for like leathers and all that. That is their belief. But notice that that belief also exists within the paradigm of respecting and identifying with every other person's choices within the society. And that is why you don't necessarily segregate or discriminate someone for being like lesbian, but just because just because you're straight. But you believe that that particular position of option best serve their own particular utility. It means that it is intrinsically consistent with the ideological purity of a vegan not to antagonize the other fashion that exists. Why is this important? Because by the shared culpability, by the principle of shared culpability, this vegan is also indirectly benefiting from the exploitation and the dehumanization that other like fashions are also doing to animals in themselves. It looks like this. You exist within a state that does things like adverse animal export, processing of animal products that also use that particular resources, things like income, to solidify the state infrastructure, which also benefits as a vegan in itself. We think that this indirect complicit nature already makes this particular vegan to also hold duty to the human race in order to stand with them better. We think in a world where you buy opening government and closing government world, you are not just being hero in the animal kingdom, but then you are being tagged as an hypocrite within the human race in itself. Why is this bad? On two levels. One, because it creates internal discontention as to how and the values that humans always want to like hold themselves. Why is this important? One, because your position as a vegan is to protect the interests of the animal kingdom. How? By eliciting and probably infiltrating information from that particular fashion and feeding it to the human race. The propensity as to why they would listen to you is at the point where you have been able to reveal and unravel all of those particular imminent harm that are mostly going to be bedeviling human. What it only does is that it allows humans to now capitalize on this particular information and accelerate things that humans are already doing in status quo, which is also going to have been like increased by 2014. Things like climate engineering, where humans are already trying to like preserve environment and all that. It means we provide the opportunity for this particular guy to heighten that particular effect. Two levels of impact and benefit on this. One, because you are able to solidify your state and your stay within the human race in itself.
This meeting is being recorded.
position to give a better solvency that exists between the two warring factions. Within the heroism that you enjoy from my own side of the house, is something that one makes you to be a better friend and like hero of humanity in themselves, which also directly spreads to your family. But then second, also makes animal world to also like you. Why? Because you are also able to have been able to use your position to preemptively preserve them. Why? Because they can only plan about the attack of humanity, but that plan may not work if they don't have the the observation and the reality of the harms that also exist on the human world in itself. It means it is only in our own world where you are able to use your position as a vegan and your access to things like information to necessarily settle the dispute between the two, not just because you don't want them to turn you to like zombie or probably eat your head off after work, right? But necessarily because you have been able to still stay as a vegan without necessarily turning against the races that produce you in itself. My partner will do better impact and like targeted rebuttal. Ever been so proud to engage from closing opposition.
Thank you so much for the speech. Before we move on to whips, one final confirmation from the panelists that you're fine to continue, please. 1, 2, 3, 3 more. Four, 5. I'm waiting for one more panelist. I don't think they're in the call. Oh no, they are. Okay, we have everyone. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the whip speeches. Let's hear government whip to conclude the government bench as a whole. Here.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible.
No, I'm speaking to the panelists. Yeah, so just give me a few first. Shout outs to Danny Darling of the Clean City Society. Shout outs to my president, the champion. Shout out to my partner. Yeah, and shout outs to everyone available here. Yeah, man. So in 3, 2, 1. So the most important reason why CEO only win this debate is based on their frame. Their frame that necessarily we haven't got into the war and that we are in the pre-war era. That's the only time that they can be able to win this debate. But clearly and literally from the info slide, it tells you that the pre-war era has already gone by. That is to say that you've had all of these different types of animals coagulate together already and voted to validate and justify and emancipate and legitimize a go-ahead to actually attack humans. What that means is that the pre-war era has already been jumped, so you don't have any choice of it is pre-war era, so let me come and negotiate with them and try to be the good guy, right? What that means is that you don't have any alternative. Just two alternatives exist. You are against all the animals in this world, or you are for them. That is what actually really happens. I want comparatively more proactive for the vegan on the first level, but secondly, it also means that the vegan is able to amplify his principle. That is what we buy into OO's when they say it's about principles, right? I want to show you why Titi steals this principle argument and wins it totally in today's debate. When you go to India, cows are deemed as humans, that they can't be eaten, right? When you kill those cows, people come at you, violate you. Why? Because those cows are very, very important to them and they value them and think that they are equivalent to human lives. That's why in India, you see cows crossing a road map, and you see people actually stopping for them to cross. That is what principles look like. In defending your principle, the outcomes always don't really matter. But I'm going to engage those outcomes, right? The outcomes don't really matter. What matters is, are you following the principle or not? That is why when MG tells you that vegans view animals as human beings, that is why they deny themselves the pleasure of program ETC and all of those things. The care that other humans get. Vegans deem humans to be metrics, right? That is what NG actually tries to validate to you. What that is that vegans in Cisco already are joining with human beings and see human beings to be opposition to them because they have certain private beliefs that animals are important and mustn't be eaten and must be protected at all costs. That is why this is what puts the vegan in a fix. As a vegan, so forget about what I've just said. Listen to this scenario. Assuming you say you are fighting against racist people, right? Just because you have a irritability with those racist people, you say that you have to tolerate them. The fact that you fight them doesn't mean that you have to tolerate them, or just because you have patience with those humans doesn't mean that you have to tolerate them in any particular sense, right? But two things here. On the principle level, as a vegan, if you support these animals, they include animals, they include wolves, they include lions. All the animals in this fucking earth in 2043 are going to be possibly more bigger and larger than the human population as a whole. What that actually really means is that if you support these animals, you're more likely to win. Even if it is true, animals outnumber humans. Animals are not only lions, they are ants, they're like mosquitoes. And animals can massively spread a lot of diseases if they want to. What this means is that cleanliness is not going to save you anymore in 2043. That's because you are cleaning pharmacy, because this one is a coordinated act. They are coming at you to like redo the things that you did to them, etc. All of this. So we think that there's more likelihood of them winning. In principle, if you join them and they win, after winning, all animals are going to see all other humans as animals. What happens is that you, as a vegan, principally joining them and winning means that you are more likely to be favored and be seen in good eye with them. That means that all other humans that are not vegans are going to get up, eaten up, right? You don't want to be in that situation because already in this school, you're already being tortured. You've already suffered for centuries. You've already seen people eat animals when you don't want them to eat them, and you're in the position of that Indian man who sees a cow being eaten and getting so sorrowful and thinking that somebody has died and funeral, etc., all of those particular things. But this means that principally we hurt you. But secondly, there's a higher chance you succeed, right? But secondly, let's assume that all I've said is nonsense, right? If they fail, it means that it is a message to the human race that they must rise up and do this, right? What does that mean? It means human race are not likely to say, well, we don't want to kill animals anymore, which is like a minimum. Like in this case, now it's in the minimum standard. I want to kill animals. We're going to do so. Let's start killing animals. It's not their problem. Because the fact that they voted obviously means that in terms of the theory, they have conscience. They have sentiments that are of human understanding or probably on par with human. Which means they become more powerful. Arguments about asymmetry doesn't really work because I can also tell you that Stanley-Marcus war with America and EU was asymmetric. This guy is fucking passed out. I can also tell you that the EU, Russia sounds like an asymmetric warfare, right? But listen, the EU are defending democracy. That's a principle. Isn't it? On principle, I'll be able to give you further analysis to validate why this is good. This is way better than what OO gives you because I've shown you how OO's word is a coward word. Because you enter the school, you started for centuries etc. and you protect animals. Yes, animals are coming to fight and you go and join your colleague humans to kill them. That's hypocrisy. That's way bad and that's more torture for your own self. But second, the possibility of those animals winning because I've shown you how they are in variety, massive large numbers etc. They cannot spread mosquito, they can spread malaria, cholera, and all of those other things. And to kill humans massively, you can't be able to control viral like infection and spreading etc. across the world. Right? But that means that animals are more likely to win. That success level I'll be able to convince you, right? But again, why do we work better than our ocean? We have been able to establish to you that the principle here that it's important that you must prioritize the idea of what you defend here in that particular instance and what is happening. Still falter because all their friends and their benefits, etc., all are dependent on pre-war errors. I'll show you how that falter, right? What the internet is in we were never opening because we saw that the war is made up of all kinds of animals. Animals that spread malaria, that spread virus, that spread chickenpox, etc. Now you being clean doesn't really matter because they are coordinated, they are voted. They're going to show up in your area, in your country and defect you. So you can't go and make a nuclear bomb to nuke a mosquito. What the fuck? You guys are going to get malaria. Look at EU, etc. A lot of humans are so vulnerable to malaria and they're going to die. So they're going to lie. They're going to achieve success. That is a higher success rate. On principle, we win. On outcomes, we win. Assurance, etc. Even if there exists asymmetry, we sure have to win. But we show you how it is in the most minimal case scenarios where these animals actually really good. It means you fought demons to start having to judge and stop eating animals on a high likelihood because the level of diseases that these animals can actually really spread, the amount of millions of cobras that exist in this world that can fucking bite you. You can't go and nuke a cobra. How can you nuke a cobra? You can't nuke, let's say, animals that spread viral right? That is why massively that success is assured and so it's out. Oh, it's out. Showed how principally it's justified for the vegan to go ahead with that. Secondly, it's justified for you to do so because you are going to win. And I've showed you that analysis and defending the sort of principle that my member has given you. What has OG not done right? OG decided to say that it's immoral, etc. and all of that, right? But what OG don't put into their immoral and justified thing is that they have not been able to show that these guys for several years, space and time, have struggled and suffered to see these methods that they oppose kill animals that they actually really love, right? But secondly, these vegans have
sorry, I'm gonna have to stop you. You're going way over time.
And creating animal rights movements and protecting them, receiving cash and all of this to push for campaigns. But that has never happened. In your judgment, the reason why vegans are not killing their
I have to stop you. You're going over time. It's 8 minutes already.
They're proud to propose we win this final.
Thank you so much for this fine speech. Let's move on to the last speech of the round. Opposition whip, whenever you're ready, floor is yours. Here.
Sincere apologies. Can I be heard?
Yes, you can be heard.
So yeah, at any point, if I'm just lagging, you can just unmute. Let me know. Yeah. Finally waited for this moment to do my speech dedication. So yeah, dedicating this speech to my amazing partner. It has by far been one of the best. Dedicating to real defeat, background, win or being, most importantly, organizing community of Zadek, World War and World War itself. And yeah, as you all have been expecting, most importantly, to take a favor, and yes, with the lally, I wish to do this one, nice one. Just 2 seconds. All right then. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think there are 2 major contexts in closing government. The first is to talk about the relatability of pain by these vegans, the relatability of pain of animals and life. I think relatability of pain is something that works more on our side because note that these individuals that these vegans are going to be killing are people that they see in day-to-day activities. So there's a more likelihood that these individuals are going to want to relate to their pain more. But note that the second thing they say is the principle of self-defense and why it's like good for like these vegans to like self-defense themselves because they believe in like the principles of like animals and like. Note that there are 2 things on the principles of self-defense and why it can't work. Note that self-defense can't happen in like a third party. This is the principle of this principle of thought. The fact that my friend was killed doesn't give me the right to actually kill person. That's because like you cannot self-defend in a third party like way. The fact that like this harm is not something that you directly caused, is something that does not give you or like that was not like directly done to you, is something that does not give you that particular like opportunity. But you must note that self-defense is something that must be instant. Note that if someone injures me, I must also retaliate immediately. At the point in time, whether I retaliate in a couple of days, it already means that that's a crime on its own. Why is that important? If you don't buy that school of thought, you must know that at the end of the day, self-defense is something that destroys everything in their world because note the death of things, humanity in general. Note that you only solve a problem in our world when you buy into like the the case you got for my partner in terms of counterfactual. I think that's like something that makes us rank above our opening, because opening just runs away from burden by saying, oh, we don't have like the burden to prove how we solve the problems or the likes. I think this directly engages opening government. Opening government is there must be need to like do things like reparation. But you have to note that reparation is wrong, because reparation can only exist when you are culpable for a particular action. The death of these animals is something that was not caused by that particular veteran, but you have to note that you cannot reparate by paying the wrong things. That's why in principles, when the blacks wanted reparation, they did ask for maybe things like shoes or things that were asymmetric. They asked for their land back. Note that you can only get reparation in our world when you do things like that my partner told you about things like geoengineering and the likes. Note that things like geoengineering are things that structurally like build back the ecosystem and like solve the problems of animals, not just when you extinguish like your mankind. But you have to know three things, like why like this particular like counterfactual you got from my partner is going to work. I think there are three things. Number one is that the recent threats of global warming that threatens all of us and gives us that existential level of threat is something that ensures that we will always like solve all those problems and ensure that the common problems of animals are something that will probably go extinct in the year 2043. But note that the interconnectivity that exists with the humans and animals, which like ensures that there is always balance in eco chain, is something that's important. At the point in time, this balance in that particular eco chain, humans always have an incentive to ensure that they like cater for it, because note that everything in the world are things that like work in line. Note that everything like the water, like the air we breathe, the natural resources and the natural earth materials and everything are things that are very, very important. Because humans note that if like animals go extinct, they're always going to have like a large fallout in things like eco balance. We see it's an incentive that our counterfactual is going to work. But we take the United Nations and all other bodies are already doing a whole lot of things. They can't say how are we going to get the money, because obviously like the motion already like because that in 2043, these are climate philanthropies are things that would have like probably like become better. But I think it's very clear, because we can always do things like infiltrate like political spaces and a whole lot of like other alternatives. Open government doesn't prove what all those alternatives or engage things that my partner told you about things like geoengineering, why there are things that could not work at the end of the day. But opening government sees that this is something that is highly cowardly. And note how we still rank above our opening in terms of response, because opening doesn't respond to this particular argument. Note that when you make your race to go extinct, you don't solve the problem, because in principle, we can't say that because the blacks were colonized by the whites, because the blacks colonized the whites, that the blacks should just like ensure that they kill out the old white face. Note that you just like cause a whole lot of chaos, and you don't actively solve the problem. Note how we've been able to prove like how like we can solve the problem radically and ensure that things like that are things that does not happen at the end of the day. But I think the idea from opening government is to talk about how humans and animals will be on equal playing field. I think like my partner already told you in an extension, in extension, the principles of like mutual assured destruction, that if it's like really like going to 2020, it means that like humans would have also like developed to a very great extent. So even if opening government says that these guys would have developed, we say the development of like human beings is something that's also going to level up, if not even more than it. So the fact that everyone might die at the long run is something that gives like the veteran the body to ensure that war is something that does not exist at the end of the day. But I think my partner already explains to you how like how it makes sense in terms of logic to talk about the aspirational values of humans. The aspirational values of humans is not to further dilapidate the earth or like worsen the solution, worsen the problem. The aspirational values of humans is to ensure that they can solve the problem so that they can be tagged as heroes. You can only be tagged as heroes not when like you subscribe to opening government and closing government board, when you destroy the whole world, or in opening opposition board, when you just fold your arms and they don't prove any mechanizations of how to solve the problem. You can only solve the problem and get immunized in our world, whereby we've been able to prove like what the counterfactual looks like at the end of the day. I think a couple of things to do the way up in the upgrade. I think it's very, very important that my partner talks to you about the principle of obligation. Note that you are first humans before you became a veteran, which means you're firstly culpable to humans before you like become culpable to like animals at the end of the day. Note that responsibilities are things that are based off of benefit. The fact that you are getting a lot of benefits from Earth, you get things like a right to life and a whole lot of other rights, it already gives you that direct burden to ensure that the human space is something that does not go extinct at the end of the day. But you have to know the principle of shared accountability that ensures that you protect humans. The fact that at the end of the day, like you also like enjoyed from the plunder that existed within society is something that necessitates you. Note that the fact that Africans can like ask for like reparations from United Kingdom and those big guys in status quo is because there was like a past grounding that currently exists, and because those countries are still like enjoying from those particular benefits. Note that this particular veteran is someone that also like enjoying from the benefits of those particular exploitation because he's like a citizen of Earth at the end of the day. It shows the accountability and they ensure that he doesn't do anything that goes against them. But I think most importantly, you have to know, like what my partner told you when he like talked about like the disbalance that exists within the ecosystem. Something I've also proved within my speech. Note that the fact that humans at the end of the day are beings that are interconnected, like when it comes to like everything that they do. Note how things like plants always depend on things like animals for like oxygens and carbon dioxide, like exchange and all those things. That means that every like species should know that they interdepend on each other. At the point in time whereby you like invalidate that interdependence, you like make all those animals to go extinct, you don't prove any problem at the end of the day. I think it's clear how we win because we were the only team that proved how like solution is going to be achieved, both in terms of principles and in terms of pragmatic outcomes. We are proud to oppose this motion.
Thank you so much for this fine speech, and I thank everyone for this truly wonderful debate. I thank the adjudicators.
The recording
and I'll
has
go
stopped.
to a breakout room that I can, I guess, create.